Yeah, that works. Okay, good. We just have 2 birthdays today or this week. Lori Whitmer is celebrating a birthday on February 10th, and Alan Clark is celebrating his birthday on February 11th. And that's it for this week.
That's it?
That's
No
good.
anniversaries?
That's a lot.
Okay. Hope I don't have an anniversary coming up. Count on this.
Do you need a prompt, Mike?
Yeah, I really need a prompt.
Yeah, that's what we're afraid of, right? So speaking of anniversaries, kind of, past President Bill, you had a daughter married over the weekend.
Oh,
Did not a big wedding.
Indeed. It was a great celebration.
Yeah.
So
how's it feeling today?
much more relaxed, ready to go.
Do I need to pay for your lunch?
Yeah, I know. We'll pick up your lunch.
I'm the guy out there with 10 cans.
It's good. It's all good. It's all good. So, so yesterday's oratory regional was at downtown. We have 2 more events to go. Lisa Marie, Dinkins, anybody have any thing they want to volunteer? How did things go? Now you both have a mouthful of food. Sorry about that. I know, Dinkins, yeah.
All right.
We've completed 3 of the 5 regionals. I think anybody that would have attended would be very impressed with the caliber of the kids again this year, as we had excellent speakers last year, as everybody knows. We've completed Orange Park, we've completed West Jax, and now downtown. The next regional is Amelia Island. Amelia Island Sunrise, and then after that we have St. Augustine. And then we'll be ready for the finals on March the 4th.
Who won yesterday?
The what?
Who won yesterday?
The student was from Bowles. The won.
Thanks, Dinkins.
All right.
And also, it's a good time to remind you about dinner club membership for the oratory as well. Please sign up for that if you feel so moved. We'd love to have you, and we need you. So keep that in mind. Future meeting dates are all posted on the DAC TV calendar, and it's very important that you RSVP for any event that has an RSVP option. Please take a moment and check out the calendar and go ahead and get those dates on your to-do list. Very important, of course. So past President Barry Covington, are you joining us today? Do we have Barry Zooming with us? We do.
Yes, I'm here.
Great, Barry. Would you introduce our visitors and guests so that we can hear our welcome song?
Well, I would love to if I knew who they were. However,
Just make them away. Have a minute.
all right, who's there? Guests, visitors, anybody bring anybody?
Nobody.
I think we're good, Barry, so you can start singing.
Well, I'll be happy to spend 10 or 15 minutes and tell you all about the virtual International Assembly, but why don't we sing instead?
Well, Barry, I was about to say, this is Jason Burnett, and if I could interrupt you, I do have a guest. Probably what you could say, one of my best friends for the last 7 years. Interestingly, she has 2 different last names. That when she's a good girl, she is Princess Burnett. And when she's a bad girl, she is Princess Dean. But I thought that since she would be very relevant to be here and wanted to hear what Professor Eli had to say. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Barry, to sing.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, let's sing. We here in Rotary welcome you today. So glad you came along, glad you came our way. Our hand of fellowship is yours in sunshine or in rain. We here in Rotary say welcome again. Give him a hand.
That was like a little painful, Mike.
Hey, well, when I got to figure out what key it's in before I start playing,
Yeah, you're the expert.
challenging.
So,
You got to learn to keep up, Mike.
Yeah, sorry, everybody.
Let me just be the first to say how relieved I am that Jason held up an animal after all that big buildup. And that it wasn't a hat I was getting ready to see next or something else. So yes, that was good. It's all good. Past President Jason, would you like to introduce our speaker today?
I just need a few extra seconds for my dog to stop howling after that singing. So that's gonna take a minute to calm her down. She was not prepared for that. We're very fortunate today to have just a wonderful program. I've heard Dr. Taylor speak before on animal intervention, assisted interventions, and she is an instructor in the Department of Public Health at the Brooks College of Health at the University of North Florida. She's a licensed clinical mental health counselor and a qualified supervisor in the state of Florida. She's nationally recognized as an expert in the integration of animal-assisted interventions in healthcare, and she directs UNF. Actually has a healthcare initiative that is a UNF animal-assisted intervention initiative, and she directs that. She's involved in several local initiatives supporting healthcare agencies. I did not, and she would have if I'd asked her. She could have brought a pony, and we would have had a full dog and pony show. But I thought we would limit it to just Professor Eli, who she'll tell you he is the only canine professor at UNF with full privileges. And with that, please extend a warm welcome to Dr. Carlene Taylor.
Well, hi, everybody, and this is Professor Eli. Thank you very much. Are you going to wave for me? Better than that. Wave hi. Thank you. Good man. So thank you, Jason. Thank you for inviting us and for bringing us here and for such a warm welcome. We have to have an encore. So we thought we'd start with a dog today. Then you'll invite me back, and then we'll bring the dog and pony show there. So I'm super excited to be with you. Eli, lots of people ask me first to tell you a little bit about Eli. Eli is a 10-year-old Portuguese water dog. He is my third therapy dog. When I entered into the animal-assisted therapy world eons ago, I trained a dog that I had. I had a special purpose dog. My second dog was an English Mastiff that was 205 pounds, but I was doing forensic evaluations for children with child abuse. And he was an exceptional dog. He brought an air of safety into the room, and many times children slid down off the couch, laid down on the dog, and they told me of the stories that had happened to them time and time again. When I was looking to go into my final leg of my career journey, I needed to have a dog that was genetically ready to partner very closely with a human being in a working relationship. So I knew that I wanted a working dog. And I found the Portuguese water dog breed because the water dogs are not in the pet trade, so their breeding is still very intact and not watered down, if you will. Because they are working dogs with Portuguese fishermen. And so the role with the Portuguese fishermen was the dog was captain, dog, and crew. And when it was time for the boats to go out, the dog would literally go around and gather up the people, gather up the tools, gather up the supplies, and then they would go out onto the boat. And if the sailors started slacking or weren't really doing their job, the dog has been known to pull on a pants leg or nip someplace and make them move. The dogs carried messages between boats, so they're really the original text messengers. They would string nets, they would pull lines. From a healthcare perspective, the natural behaviors that this dog knows that's ingrained in him to do in our relationship is exactly what a healthcare provider needs for a professional therapy dog. So he is an extension of my work as a clinical mental health counselor and as a professor at the university. So where I go, he goes. And whatever it is that I'm engaged in and whatever it is that I'm doing, he does it with me. Much like today, he cased out the room, saw who was here, paid a few visits, and now he knows I'm speaking, so he lays down. He'll tell me when about 15 minutes is up, because he'll get up and say, it's time for you to shut up. It's late, lady. It's time for us to move on. So we work together pretty closely. We have a PowerPoint that will go at some point. Somebody showing the PowerPoint? It's coming.
There it is.
PowerPoint is coming. Okay, yay. There we go. Okay, so this is me. And integrating animals into healthcare and education is what we're going to talk about today. Next slide. So animals make us human. Temple Grandin, a professor at Colorado State University that many people know about, wrote a book called Animals Make Us Human. This is not a new idea. We know that animals are crazy popular right now. You can't see a video or you can't see a commercial on TV. It doesn't matter what they're selling. Somebody always pulls up a puppy or a cat or a horse or something else. Animals are incorporated. And right now, our society is very engaged, particularly in the pandemic. You know that when within a few months after the pandemic hit, most of the animal shelters were empty. People were lonely and isolated, and they added animals to their world. Albert Einstein said that our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. So Einstein started us there. Next, we're going to move through these pretty quickly. Why does it matter? Why would the University of North Florida and other colleges and universities and researchers be interested in sharing the human-animal bond in healthcare and in education and in various other places? Well, there's something called blue ribbon emotions, and there are 7 primary emotional systems that all mammals share. The human, animal, and all other mammals. We all seek. Ever had that experience? If you want it, you want it, you want it, you're so excited that you want it, and then you get it, and there's a letdown. It's the kid on the day after Christmas, and it's many of us when we get that promotion we were looking for, or we get that house that we were looking for, or whatever it was. Seeking is a natural part of mammal behavior, and the excitement and the pleasure that actually comes from the seeking is far better than whatever it is we in fact get. Rage is an emotion that comes out of feeling trapped. Fear, panic, the desire for lust, procreation, or creation. So it's in the lower levels on the animal world, that's about having offspring. But in higher levels on the animal world, it's also about generosity and creativity and engagement, and whether you give birth to children or whether you give birth to programs or whether you give birth to agencies or whether you give birth to projects. But it's about being creative, care and nurturing, and then play. These 7 primary emotional systems, without them, if an animal doesn't express them, then there's something wrong and out of balance in their world. How many people do you know, and how many times in your own life have you experienced that maybe nurturing or play were the first to go when we devoted ourselves to something that took all of our time? And you will see more of the uncomfortable emotions when the more joyful and pleasurable seeking, play, and care and nurturing emotions go away. So because all animals share those, we have some things in common, and they can teach us a bit better than we can teach ourselves often about how to balance those emotions, because humans are the only animal that can choose to physically have their body in the moment and their head be worried about something last minute, last week, last month, last year, 30 years ago, or be moving ahead while their body is going here. All of the other animals are present in the moment all the time. And so they experience these emotions as they come up. And you know what? When humans get sick, physically sick, emotionally sick, psychologically sick, we work to balance these emotions and we work to keep them present in the moment. And that's the antidote. So if we can help create relationship between humans and animals who are always in the moment, then we can help people who are ill be better. Next slide. Maybe the next slide. It's being temperamental. We'll talk about the next slide when it gets here.
There it is.
There. Nope, that's the same slide.
Oh.
Okay. So I think the next slide is about the biophilia hypothesis. The other reason of why this is very important is the 1980s, a guy named Edward. It's not quite yet. You're not quite there yet. Hang on, bud. Hang on. Hang on. Give me a break. Sit. Thank you. Animals will become our junior partners and friends, affecting a revolutionary transformation of man's attitudes. Boris Levinson, 1975, he was the pioneer of animal-assisted therapy. He presented he's a psychiatrist, and he presented his very first paper at the APA convention in the 70s. And quite frankly, he was laughed off the stage. His colleagues thought that he had lost his mind, even though Sigmund Freud worked with 2 dogs in his office. And Freud was known to say that his dog Joffy was the best assessment tool that he had in his entire career. All right, come on, bud. Have a seat. Thank you. Lay down. Thank you. I know. Thank you. Okay, next slide. Now we're going to talk about biophilia hypothesis. There it is. So the biophilia hypothesis by Wilson says that inside of every human is a biological need to connect with nature. It is innate. It is an urge to affiliate with other forms of life. We know that species of animals who have affiliatives, which is connective, engaged, social relationships with other species, are more prone to survive than species who are isolated, who don't affiliate with other forms of nature. So it is a natural evolutionary process for all interspecies to connect with each other. And nature contact promotes nurturing. That when we find that there's been some wonderful studies about inner city kids. A friend of mine has a program in Detroit, Michigan, where she has inner city children that are in work with dogs from the shelter, and the kids train. It's called Teacher's Pet. The kids train the dogs, and the kids experience very little nurturing and very little care. But when they train those dogs and they help the dogs get adopted, that the kids who are in that program, who participated in the Teacher's Pet program and whom their dog got adopted and was placed in a permanent home, that child's outcome was always better than the kids who didn't. So we know that engagement of nature, viewing, being present, and engaging in nature all have a positive impact on humans. And so when we can bring people out into the woods or out into our gardens or whatever, but we can also bring nature inside. Next slide. Not a new thing. Ancient Greeks, Xenophon, Hippocrates, all the shamans, early healthcare systems, Florence Nightingale, the sanitarium farm retreats. Animals in healthcare isn't a new thing. It's ancient, absolutely ancient. But there was a period of time in our culture where we threw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, when we sanitized everything. Next slide. There was a period of time, this is a picture from, I think it was the 1950s, there's obviously a child, probably with tuberculosis, who was in a hospital, and this is not the most sanitary thing to have done. I think we've improved our animal engagement a little bit earlier than bringing ducks to swim around by the side of a hospital bed, but they brought animals into hospitals a long time ago. Besides love and sympathy, animals exhibit other qualities connected to social instincts, which is what would be called moral. We can teach moral behavior as a result of relationships with animals. That was Charles Darwin. Next slide. So what do animals in healthcare look like today? The picture on the left is a therapeutic riding client. This was a little girl a number of years ago who obviously had physical disabilities, and she was practicing leading her pony, that she was able to do things with the horse, she was able to ride, she was able to find mobility. The field of therapeutic horseback riding has been in existence since the 1950s. We found out about, I guess we're going on 20 years ago now, that part of what made therapeutic riding successful was actually the emotional relationship between the human and the horse. That people would complete their PT exercises when they were working with a horse. that they wouldn't do when they were working with a table or a ball or another tactic. And so it was actually the engagement with the horse that when the relationship and their desire that was motivating. We have since expounded upon that, and we know. And then, of course, we now bring dogs into healthcare centers and into hospitals. Next slide. So what is animal-assisted interventions? I'm glad you asked. Animal-assisted interventions is an overarching umbrella term. My students will say that if you say the word pet therapy, you'll watch my head spit around and I'll spit out pea soup. Pet therapy is an old term for taking animals into hospitals. We know a lot more about the science now. And so animal-assisted activities is taking visiting animals. It is going out for 2 hours, it's going into the hospital, going into the clinic, going into the school, and engaging people just for social benefit, for motivational benefits, but you're not really engaging for the most part with the person in the exercise. Animal-assisted therapy, however, is where a licensed clinician is working with the patient or patients and the behavior or characteristics of the animal or the farm environments. So when Eli works with me with patients or works with me with students where we're working on counseling, then that's an animal-assisted therapy. We also have animal-assisted education, and that's everything from the reading dog programs where the dogs go into the elementaries or middle or high schools and the students read to the dog and that improves their reading skill, or he's on all of my syllabi. We also have animal-assisted education dogs in exercise science and in the athletic department. Next slide, next slide.
When you get through in here, let me know, then I can move in there.
Okay.
All right.
Model of animal-assisted therapy, the way that we can do animal-assisted therapy is either a triangle model, so therapist, animal, and the client, or volunteer visiting animal-assisted intervention people can bring their dog, and I can work with both of them. Go ahead, next slide. We're going to move through these slides pretty quickly. One of the things that's very unique about the program at UNF is that what we do, that is, we're one of only 13 programs in the country, and we're the only one in the Southeast, that we have an educational credentialing program where our students are taught about registration standards, the human certifications, the standards of practice. So we move beyond, gosh, this is a good thing and okay, it works. We really incorporate the science and how to get the appropriate national and international credentialing that goes along with it. Next slide. The competencies of practice, they just came out in 2016, and that's actually what made it possible for UNF's programs to come into existence. Because now that we had a set of evidence-based competencies for practice, we could then build educational programs in the college that go through the academic programs committee and have them validated and verified. And that's what the program is. Next slide.
Good looking.
We are a part of PATH International.
Good looking. Oh, yeah.
We are known, we're part of PATH International, and that is the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship.
Yeah, it is.
That's
Really.
where the Pony Show comes from.
What is that? Is that a summer park?
We have higher ed memberships.
I must be wearing more often.
Hey, Larry, could you mute your microphone there? Thanks.
So we teach students from the PATH International credentialing standard. So when our students come through our program, if they wish to go onto the therapeutic riding field, their education will help them qualify for their certifications. And we're a higher ed membership with the PATH International. Next slide. The other governing international body is Animal Assisted Interventions International. They published the practice standards in 2019. They are specific for dogs, and they have a set of standards of practice for activities, therapy, and education and support. They have accreditation standards published in 2020. The University of North Florida is a professional member, and we're on their list of preferred programs from Animal Assisted Interventions International. Next slide. That's Eli when he was little. So what does it look like at UNF today? In the Brooks College of Health, we have a 3-course graduate certificate program in animal-assisted therapy and counseling. We have a partnership with the Division of Continuing Education, and it's a CEU certificate for animal-assisted interventions. We do a animal-assisted therapy symposium once a year. It's not this weekend, it was earlier. Osprey Perch is a integrative counseling service on campus, and we integrate animals into our counseling with our students on campus. And we have community partnerships with Pet Partners and the Therapy Animal Coalition. But where the ponies come from is the Nemours Children's Specialty Clinic. If you guys have seen the news this year, you've probably seen Nemours' ponies. 6 Nemours clinical faculty, 3 nurse practitioners, 2 psychologists, and a licensed clinical social worker came through our program, got our certificate, and they are building a miniature horse facility behind Nemours to integrate horses into their clinical practices, but also putting dogs on the clinic floors. And we are doing a research project about that. So next slide. So what we're doing at UNF, and I'll close with these last few slides. When I was trying to get ready to go to college in the 80s, it was pretty simple. You did okay in school, took the SAT, you applied to 3 colleges, and you got into college. Next slide. What does it look like today? That is what comes to college as a freshman. These kids have had to take AP classes, they've stressed, they've taken SAT preps. Then they've had to hire an essay coach. They've had to give FAFSA more information than was necessary for them to get a security clearance for the FBI. Requires letters of recommendations, more stress, more SATs, play a sport, work a job, ask parents for tons of cash for college that won't cover it all, applications, pray you get into one of the dozens of colleges that you apply to. That's how they get to us today. Next slide. Stress is the #1 issue on the life and minds of the college student today. It's not drugs, it's not sex, it's not rock and roll. It's really stress. All those things else apply too. But be that as it may, and maybe that's some of the cause of the stress, but be that as it may, we know 31% of teens surveyed, this is an older survey, 2014, reported being overwhelmed, reporting fatigue. 54 underestimate the body. Most of the disease processes that we have in our country are exacerbated or caused by stress. The systems that we are putting our kids into are stress inducing. So we need to do something about it. Next slide. This is what UNF is doing. Monday, actually, we kicked off our Campus Canines program. We will, over the course of spring and summer, we will recruit, train, and engage 12 visiting animal-assisted intervention teams. They're volunteers, just like the Mayo Clinic, just like Baptist Healthcare, just like any of the other healthcare clinics that have visiting animal programs. UNF will have a team of 12 dedicated visiting volunteer animals. If this is something you would have interest in, we absolutely can help you get connected if you have a dog that will pass the Pet Partners test. They will come onto campus 1 or 2 times a week, 2 hours at a time. They'll be in the library, the College of Health, the athletic department, walking around campus, and we'll do special events. On Monday, the event that we're doing with Campus Canines is we're going to do a research project, gathering data, where we bring the Campus Canines with 5 stations. The students will get a pre-evaluation of their stress level. They'll have a 5-minute visit with a therapy dog, and they'll have a post-evaluation. And we'll see what their perspective is after having had the therapy animal visit and the reduction of their stress. We also have the Scholars with Collars program. That is Professor Eli. He is the representative of the Scholar with a Collar. Well, to become a Scholar with a Collar, you have to be a visiting therapy animal dog. But you also have to go through some extra training as well. He has a Canine Good Citizen advanced credential. He seems really, really impressed with himself right this second. He's on the floor. But the American Kennel Club has a title for therapy dogs. And so you go through all the appropriate training and you have to volunteer for at least 50 hours and then get a letter of recommendation from your veterinarian and a letter of recommendation from someone in the community recommending your dog for the AKC. Yes, it is a THD. So he has his THD, and that's the required credential to be a scholar with a collar at the University of North Florida. He has his, we have 3 others that are in the pipeline right now, one of which is a puppy that will be the residence dog at the counseling center. I told you about our educational programs, but we are also soberingly, it is part of our mission to create a crisis response team. No one wants to hear about or talk about the natural disasters or the things that come that devastate people's lives. When Marjorie Stoneham, the incident Marjorie Stoneham occurred, there was no way to put that school back together. There was no way to respond to that tragedy by any of the normal means that we have. And so they flew in crisis dogs from Iowa, Idaho, from the Northwest. Those dogs lived in hotel handlers for more than 6 months, responding to the needs of those kids, because there wasn't a crisis response team in the state of Florida or the Southeast. There are some crisis response dogs that are trained now, but there is no coordinated effort. We have a law enforcement training center and a crisis training center on campus at UNF, and we have expertise in animal-assisted therapy. It is part of our goal that Florida will have a center where crisis teams can be prepared, and the University of North Florida will have a working crisis response team. So heaven forbid that we have a crisis in our state of that nature, we'll be able to take care of it in our house. So next slide. And I'm about done. Told you about our partnerships. Next slide. So this is a little bit about what it looks like. Obviously, you see Mr. Eli. This is a student that is actually functioning as a leader and a sidewalker. We took some kids to Special Olympics. And this was one of my longtime therapy courses, Cash. When you look at those images, if you can imagine having those experiences in a college classroom and see what that can do to the stress that college students have. Next slide. So I'll leave you with a graduate reflection. I had a student, class of 2018. She finished her animal-assisted therapy certificate 2 days before graduation. And part of the exercise was we had an obstacle course, and she had to lead a horse through this obstacle course. And the obstacles represented things in her life. She was leading over the obstacle. It had rained the night before, so the course was muddy, and she was leading the horse over the obstacles. And she said, in her reflection, was that the experience of animal-assisted therapy was wonderful, especially at the farm. The final exercise was an amazing mirror of my entire graduate school experience. Uphill, in the mud, and crap, she didn't say that, all the way over obstacles, feeling clueless, but supported and never alone. Odie was her horse, showed me that I could do more than I ever imagined, and I am better prepared to go into the world because of this experience. Last slide. And that's Dakota and Odie. This is how you get in touch with me. I'm happy to entertain any questions. I know I've taken up the time. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good friend, Sherry Duvall recently passed away.
Yes.
Sherry Duvall, Canine for Warriors.
Yes.
We all know the fact she spoke to our club several years ago. Did y'all's organizations ever cross paths?
So we're friends. Canines for Warriors. So one of the projects that I work with is the Jacksonville Equestrian Center is opening a therapeutic horsemanship program in a big scale, but we're running a pilot project for them almost across the street from Canines for Warriors. And the Canines for Warriors folks and I have talked. We absolutely love them. We respect what they're doing. They're doing a lot of research with Purdue, and we're having conversations. We would like for them to bring that research here. We would do some of that research here at the University of North Florida. They're doing they're really one of the leaders in the nation with supportive research that demonstrates both the benefit of having canine matches, service dogs for PTSD with veterans, but also the dogs they're training. They are making it accessible because the dogs they're selecting, they're temperament testing dogs in shelters. They're bringing in dogs that otherwise other models have said, oh, you can't possibly get a shelter dog to do this work. It's too hard. And it is hard. I'm gonna give you that. There are some things that happen in dogs' lives. If they happen early in life, they can't do this work. And that's just the way that is. But there are plenty of dogs that absolutely can do the work. And Canines for Warriors is proving that.
Can we ask for questions from the folks on Zoom?
Anywhere.
Anybody got a question on Zoom? Try to give you first shot.
I have a scaredy cat in the house, but I don't think this is an appropriate place to talk about it.
I have, so if somebody has a dog and if they would like to seek training for their dog to be a volunteer, where would they go?
So thank you for asking that. I have a formula that I follow. There are lots of different ways, and there are people that will sell you all kinds of things. This is how I raise my puppies, and I recommend and raise my students raise their dogs as well. And that is the first, if it's a puppy, you raise the dog and you go through the regular AKC obedience classes, star puppy, whatever the general, and you can get those classes at PetSmart. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. There's a book I recommend, How to Raise a Puppy You Can Live With. If your dog is no longer a puppy, or if you've gotten an older dog, you want to have it temperament tested, and a dog training, the same dog trainers can make sure it's got the temperament that it wants to be affiliative. The dog needs to want to engage with other people. If you have that, as long as that's your condition, then Canine Good Citizen is an AKC training program and an AKC test. Cost about $100, I think, through PetSmart. There are other trainers here in town, always positive reward training. There are some trainers here who use negatives, but positive reward training worked past the AKC Canine Good Citizen test. If you can pass that, then your dog can absolutely be a therapy dog. We do Pet Partners. They're Pet Partners, Alliance of Therapy Dogs are the two major registering bodies at UNF. Registration every semester. You go to petpartners.org, become a member. It'll guide you through the process of how to get a Pet Partners registration. And once your dog can pass the Canine Good Citizen test, you're ready to do the Pet Partners piece. And you just email me if you have any questions. c.taylor@unf.edu. Yes, sir.
So a dog has a desire for affiliation.
Yes.
But as compared to like Canines for Warriors or Seeing Eye Dogs, you know, normally you're told don't approach. So a different type training.
Very different. Oh yes,
okay.
Very different. The Canines for Warriors dogs, the service dogs, and I didn't include in this because you don't want a whole lecture and I don't have all day, but there are different types of dogs. So there's therapy dogs, there's service dogs, there are emotional support, etc. So a service dog is meant to be yoked with the human and really to shut out everybody else. They really are to not care about the rest of the world. A therapy dog needs to care. A therapy dog needs to sense that there are other people in the room and surely you want to see me. They brighten their day. Affiliative dogs do not make good service dogs, and service dogs do not make good therapy dogs.
Okay.
So, yes.
What are some of the major factors that brought this program about to come to UNF? Are you one of them?
Yes, sir. So there are a lot of different factors. Actually, Canines for Warriors. Jacksonville is a very strong animal community, and the Canines for Warriors and the Orion projects and the projects that were already going on here really introduced, or they were, with Canines for Warriors being a leader in the nation in discovery of new knowledge about the application of animals and healing, made Jacksonville attractive to me as a clinician. I had been in private practice. I promised my husband I would retire at 55, and it got down around 50. I decided that I'm not really ready to do that. So I really want to take the show onto I need to get into a state university. I really want to do research. I really want to take what I have learned in the field and through my practice and really get into research. And I looked at a number of different universities. I had an offer to go to Colorado State and teach with Temple Grandin. It's cold there. I visited and chose wisely not. And before I actually accepted a job in Savannah at Savannah College of Art and Design, I knocked on the door at UNF and said, maybe UNF would be interested. And what I found was warmth and receptivity in the College of Health and the mental health counseling program. A dean, President Szymanski has come on since then, who's been amazing. But I found a place, UNF. The College of Health genuinely cares about, well, the whole college does, but the College of Health especially genuinely cares that we produce good clinicians out into the community and that we produce healthy clinicians. And so it created an environment where my program was ripe to grow. And then I've had wonderful support since, and I've had fabulous community support. And I know that somewhere along the lines, Rotarians choose projects you want to work with. I hope that you will think of UNF and you'll think about our animal assisted therapy program. Our program does exist solely off of foundation dollars. So my salary as a faculty member is funded from being a faculty member. But anything having to do with the program, anything having to do with the animal side of that is strictly a donation only program.
Well, that was going to be my next question, is how do you grow it and how does the money come in? So describe that a little bit more. What foundation are we talking about?
Well, there's the UNF Foundation, of which Jason is our president. So there's a foundation initiative within UNF to raise funds to expand programs and innovative programs like this within the university. The collaborations that I do with Nemours or with the Jacksonville Equestrian Center, I provide them, it's not just me, it's myself and my students provide them with technical expertise and experience, and they make a contribution toward that, which helps fund the next, as they pay it forward, basically, for the next group that might need something. And we get sponsorships. I get sponsorships, and we have programmed we write for grants. We do dog and pony shows, quite frankly, and in hopes of being able to raise some funds. We really have to, I just wrote a grant for this, the campus canines is going to cost about $10,000 a year to operate, to be able to provide all the things that you need to make that happen, which is a pittance considering what we're doing. But it's because we use volunteers, but it's still $10,000 a year. The student government asked them to cover that. The canine crisis response teams, those are going to have a budget. They're going to need to be funded. So we pitch it and we ask for people to help us make it happen, buy into the dream. Thank you so much for letting me be with you, for welcoming Eli. All right, Eli, ready? Ready? All right, wave bye. Wave bye. Come on, you can do it. He's like, sorry, my time is up, lady. Hey, look at me. Look at me. Come on. Wave bye. There you are. Thank you, everybody.
As a thank you, we'll be making a contribution in your honor to the Rotary International Polio Plus
wonderful
campaign to
Thank you.
eradicate
Very
polio
much.
in our lifetime. Thank you very much again.
I appreciate it.
Okay, so be sure to RSVP for each meeting going forward. We have to have your response. It's how we have all this good food and all of the fabulous presentations that we're able to make happen. So don't forget to do that. Next week, our speaker is Mike Binder, UNF Associate Professor of Political Science. So as we end our meeting, please join me in the Rotary motto.
Service of self, and profits most.
See you next week.